Well, good evening. Good evening. I'm so excited that we get to talk small church strong tonight. Welcome to today's workshop. I'm Land Wilson, the Director of Worship for G&J, and we are excited that you are here. Tonight we're going to be talking about music in the small church and what to do when we have no music or when the music needs some help and needs new life. So welcome along. I want to open us up with prayer, and we'll go ahead and get started. Awesome, God, thank you so much for this day and for your goodness and kindness towards us. Thank you for allowing us to serve you in such a way that we get to make your name great. And so we pray, God, that in all things, at all times, no matter what our circumstances are, no matter what our situation is, God, that we would give you the praise that's due your name every time we come together, and even in our own personal lives, but particularly for tonight. God, as we look towards Sunday worship services, we pray, God, that we would seek to give you all the glory that's due your name. So show us how to do that with passion and with excellence and with the greatness of the Spirit and power of your name that rests within us. So thank you in Christ. Amen. Amen. So Gina's going to put on the PowerPoint. And you won't have to see me. If you're watching on the screen, you won't have to see me at all for the rest of the night. Thank you so much. This is the end of my smile for the night. So I'm just going to stop my video so it doesn't run down the battery. So tonight, we're going to talk about what it means to do worship in the small church. So many of our churches, as I've been traveling for the last year, this is my 12th month working for G&J, and as I've been traveling for the last year, I've been to at least about 75 of our churches and met with a couple hundred of our pastors, and I hear all the time that worship needs help. Worship needs help. What do we do to make Sunday morning better? And so we just want to kind of look at how we can do that, particularly in the realm of music tonight. And then how we can affect that from other ways that will help kind of subside unavoidable issues with music as well. So Gina's going to help us run slides. Gina's in the back. So tonight we're going to talk first of all just about what's wrong. So what's going on, what's wrong. So let's jump to that first slide. Most of us have one of these problems, and we can talk about other problems that we might have, but the problems are, is that clear? Yeah. So most of us have one of these problems. First is we have no musician or no sound system to play music from if we don't have a musician. The people won't sing, or we have music and the music just isn't great. So we're trying to figure out what to do, how to do it, because it's not great. Or the music isn't reaching people. We're not connecting with people. And that is an issue that churches have, large or small. I talk to pastors all the time with 10 people or 1,000 people, and that's a common problem is how do we have music in the church that reaches people and connects with people and helps them reach God in a realistic way? And we talk a lot about this idea of, you can stay on that previous slide. We talk a lot about that idea of how to make sure that if we're going to have music, that it is real and relevant and not just ritualistic, not just going through the motions of we do 2 hymns every Sunday, so let's just do it and then get it over with, that kind of thing. So that's a problem that churches of all sizes are facing with. And then one of the other problems that a lot of us are having is we don't have enough people to sing. There's either not enough people to make a choir or not enough people to make a praise team, or just not enough people in the congregation on Sunday morning that'll sing out loud. So when we do congregational hymns, you can't hear people singing. So how do we do that? How do we get more people involved, or how do we try to find some alternative ways to get around that, whether you're in a congregation with 7 people or 70? So I just want to kind of dig into that. Are there any other things that you would say would be a problem that you might be having in the church? these are about it. Anything else you can think of? That kind of hits it? Okay, all right. Okay, let's look at the next slide. So let's start digging into some of this stuff. I'm going to try to hit, Gina and I just kind of work through as many questions that we thought people might have, and then I want to make sure that we leave some room for more questions at the end. So I want to just talk about a lot of stuff. Some of this might address your problem, and it might not, but hopefully this does hit where it is. If not, I'll tell you how we can move forward even afterwards. So what do you do when the music isn't worshipful, or quite frankly, just isn't good? So some of us have music, but it's just not, it doesn't feel like good worship, or it's just not good music. It doesn't sound good. And the first thing is like, who's owning it? Who takes ownership for that? A lot of times there's a challenge that we're facing in the church, and we deal with that challenge over and over again, and it's a burden and a weight we carry, and something that distracts us and preoccupies us, but nobody's really owning it. So who's really owning that? Is there a musician there that's owning that? Are you the pastor in charge of planning the music and selecting the hymns every week? Or do you have a worship committee or a worship chair that's doing that kind of thing? If at all possible, I suggest, even as a small church pastor, don't do it by yourself. Even if it's just one other person that you can sit with at the beginning of the month. And I tried to do that at the end of the previous month, to sit down with just two other people. One was the organist, and another one was just another person in the church. And we would sit there and plan out all the hymns and music for the next month. And then it was it was a weight lifted off me, but also it was a collaborative work. So it got other opinions involved and other thoughts and perspectives involved. And so it felt like it was more life-giving, you know? So that's the thing, is who's in charge, who's involved in the planning of it. If it's not good, who are we working with to make it better? And we'll talk about some different ways to try to make it better. One of the good things that I always suggest is just give some new life to worship. No matter whether you're using a cappella music on Sundays, or just hymns, or you have a small choir or a small ensemble, or a good guitar player or organist, or whatever it is, the Bible tells us to sing unto the Lord a new song. And even if we're just doing hymns on Sundays, I guarantee you, out of the 600 or 700 hymns that are in the United Methodist Hymnal, there are some you haven't done on Sunday morning. And if you've made it through all of that, we have the supplements, the Faith We Sing and Worship and Song, that give us hundreds and hundreds more of songs. And especially like that Faith We Sing and Worship and Song has a lot of things that are easy to sing. It might be something new and fresh that's not as familiar to the congregation, that we can learn together, and they offer it in a new, like, easy to sing kind of way that makes it really possible for churches of any size to introduce new stuff. I recommend that you introduce a new song or hymn once every month. Is a good practice to work towards, but at least once every other month. And that will keep people motivated. Even if you're dealing with, and I know the realities of some of the small congregations some of us are dealing with, even if you're dealing with a dozen or two of, retired community, older people who don't have a lot of energy, new life really will bring new energy into the worship, no matter what your perspective is. Or if it's just a couple of young families together, or whatever your dynamic is, you have no idea the impact you can make on a worship service by introducing something new and celebrating that, so that people aren't uncomfortable, because then they're going to think, the first reaction somebody's going to have to any kind of change, but for this instance, to new songs and new hymns, they're going to say, what happened to the ones we always sing? Why are you trying to do something new? The Bible says, sing unto the Lord a new song. Worship ought to have life, which means it grows and it progresses. And so even if it's just new hymns, our new Faith We Sing, our new contemporary songs, our new choruses we learn from wherever, there is life-giving energy to introducing new things. And understand that everybody won't be on board with that at first. but communicate. We're trying some new things. We're trying to bring in some new life. The body of Christ is alive, and we want it to be alive and well, not alive and on life support. That's the reality of how it feels sometimes on Sunday mornings for some of us. So we want to make sure that we're giving life to this worship experience. One of the easiest ways you can keep track of that is by keeping a list of commonly used songs and track how often you're using them. And rotate some of them off the list for a while on a regular basis. If you guys are singing "Oh How I Love Jesus" like all the time, that's wonderful. Let's give it a break for 6 months. That's a really good habit. There's a website I use called Planning Center Online that helps do this for free. You just, if you have less than, I think it's like if you have less than 24 users, not members, but users, which means like you and an admin or you and a volunteer are using it. It's for free. You can put all your songs in there and keep track of what you're doing every week. And then I think I have an example of it on the next slide, Tina, where, yes, this is what it looks like in Planning Center. So pull up this kind of report. And then the next one will actually kind of show you what that looks, what the report looks like. So this shows, and sorry, that was right. So this shows, like, I don't know if you can see here, but Alpha and Omega is the second one on that, and I've got it tracing back to October 26th, from now October 26th, and it shows that we've only sang Alpha and Omega once in the last 3 months. It shows that we sang Blessed Assurance twice in the last 3 months, so it's time to give that a break. Come as you are, no, Come Thou Fount. That's like my favorite hymn. This is really good for me as a worship leader because I have favorite hymns that I can hear every week. But people are probably tired of me singing Come Thou Fount because I've done it twice in the last 2 months. So I'm gonna take a break from that and introduce some new stuff. Now this is just from annual conference, like MRC worship that we have on Mondays, where we only do 2 hymns every week and stuff. So you'd be surprised to see at my old church, especially in our traditional service, like about 60, 70 people, what that looked like when we were doing 2 or 3 hymns every week. When we pulled the report and you could see, like, here's our 40 hymns that we're singing a lot right now. And it would show you on the chart how many times we did those. And then we could easily say, it's time. Like, it's time to take a break from one and put some new things in the rotation. So that's just an easy practice that no matter what your worship dynamic is, whether you have music, whether you have accompaniment, or not, you guys are singing a cappella, are you singing to tracks, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute, to just give new life and make sure that you're not becoming redundant. Okay? So let's look at the next slide. So this is just back to, again, what to do when the music isn't good and isn't worshipful or just isn't good. Dealing with people issues. Sometimes, and I'll talk about what that means. Sometimes we just have to deal with the people issues that are keeping our worship from thriving, or keeping our music in particular from thriving or from growing. And I'll talk a minute, there's a whole slide I'm gonna get to and just talk about what that looks like. The next thing is, are we singing the right kind of music? Do what puts you at your best. So if you're noticing, hey, when we do some of these simpler, like call and response or easy choruses that people get life, or if it's a song that people like to clap to, or everybody joins in and stuff, find more stuff like that and do it more often, so that, use what's thriving and then try something different. If what we're doing isn't working, if the hymnal isn't getting us anywhere, let's try some Faith We Sing stuff. Let's try some worship and song, or let's try to pull in maybe some African call and response choruses and those kind of things, just to try to get some more life into it. And then the next thing is, sometimes the music isn't good because we aren't prepared adequately. We've got an organist or a worship leader that's coming in on the fly Sunday morning. I've seen a lot of churches that are having choir rehearsal 30 minutes before church on Sunday, and that's the only rehearsal we have for the whole week. And then we're just kind of settled into, and I realize schedules are crazy, But we really wrestle with settling into mediocrity at that point. Because we're not giving people adequate time to practice. Also, adequate preparation time, which means letting the people who are playing the music, whether it's your organist or the person who's picking the hymns that we're going to play from the tracks, or that's helping to pick the choir anthems, whatever that is, giving them enough time to prepare for what our worship service is going to be planned around, what the theme of the service is going to be for that week. Is it Epiphany Sunday, and we're going to be talking about from darkness to life, or is it telling your story? And we didn't tell them that this is the series that we're doing all month. They're just kind of figuring this out as we go. And so they're rushing and scrambling to try to plan. So we got to make sure we're doing everything we can as leaders to set the people that are planning our worship and that are actually executing the worship, that we're setting them up for success. And that if they're not meeting the expectations, that we're doing what we can to make sure that expectations are clear and there's a clear path to success as well. So let's jump to the next slide, and I want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. Yep, one more. Oh man, it's coming in line by line. Sorry. So, yeah, I think that's it. Let's try it. Yeah, that's it. That's it for that slide. So dealing with people issues. One of the things that we struggle with trying to make changes in worship that either just isn't working or isn't good, or we have leadership that's leading worship that isn't good, whether it's your lay servants that are planning the worship or your organist or worship committee, and things just are missing the mark somehow. Here's some of the things that we have to deal with when it comes to dealing with people issues. The first thing is we're called to love and to shepherd people. And so loving people is, again, setting them up for success, but also shepherding them to excellence. So how can I help position our leaders and our worship service and everybody that's making Sunday morning happen in a place that we're doing it with excellence? The second thing is realize that when you start making these changes to try to make things better, and this is just one of my things that I put in about any kind. This is a slide actually from a workshop I did on change last week. Realize that anytime you're introducing any kind of change in the church, everybody ain't for you, and everybody definitely ain't with you. And that's my Kentucky talk. So that's just kind of is what it is. So, but the thing is, you can get people on board. Try to get people on board. That's why I said communicate the change. Let people know, hey, we're trying to do something different. We're trying to bring some life back to worship. All is not lost. We don't have to just suffer through the whatever it is, the missing of the mark of whatever it is, through the boredom or the silence or the whatever it is, week after week. We can do better, and we can make things better. But get people on board with that. Say, hey, we're trying to do some new stuff. Get some input. And what that means is getting what we call positive allies. This is an outward mindset kind of thing of having positive allies, and healthy relationships with people that are going to be of influence and be uplifting, of saying, hey, I want to bounce some ideas off you. Can you give me some feedback? That's the opposite of getting the kind of allies that are saying, hey, you know what? Music kind of sucks on Sunday. I'm planning to talk to her about it. Would you just back me up? No, that's not the kind of allies we want. We want the kind of people that we can bounce ideas off of, that we can be honest and graceful with, and that when we start approaching communicating change, that we're getting more people on board with this change is going to be helpful and healthy for our church. Not trying to put somebody against somebody, or not trying to shove somebody out, because we border with the risk of actually doing that from time to time. The next thing is just taking it one step at a time. And again, realizing and remembering that everybody will not be on board at first, but give them time. Change takes time. Acceptance of change takes time. So keep trying to work with that thing. Keep pushing for trying to make Sunday morning better. You can do it one step at a time. If you've been in any workshops that I've taught before, you've probably heard me talk about the book Who Moved My Pulpit, and Tom Rainer and his experience of when he decided he was going to just slap all these changes on the church without communicating, without praying about it first, without getting the right people on board for it first. And he lost the trust of the people, and he lost the momentum for growth for at least 2 years before he could really get things back on the right path, because he didn't take things one step at a time. If you're going to take things one step at a time, the first thing you have to do is pray about it. God, how do we make things better? What's the first move I need to make? Who's the first people I need to talk to? What influence, what insight, what wisdom do I need to get from people? And give me the receptive mind and the open mind to be able to hear what the people are saying as well, and hear the hearts of the people, so that this just isn't what I want, and it's not just my agenda, but it's what the body of Christ wants, discerning on how we can glorify you better. So that has to be your first step. The next thing is, and it's the reality of dealing with people issues, is that you can't put off till tomorrow. That says don't put but it should be don't put off till tomorrow. When it comes to leaders, if you've got some leadership, somebody that's planning worship, or somebody that's doing your music, leading your music on Sunday, that you're having problems with, don't put it off until tomorrow. Don't keep waiting and waiting. I know we've got 1,000 things to do as pastors and leaders, but now is the time to try to make things better. If we're going to see the body of Christ survive and continue to grow, and really get out of that life support mode and get into just some life again, we have to make sure that we're having the good, healthy conversations with, again, making sure our expectations are clear. If something's missing the mark, whether it's with the choir or the praise band or the organist or pianist or the guitar player or whoever, or the liturgist, the lay servant, whoever, whatever, the worship committee, make sure that our expectations are clear, that everybody's on the same page as those expectations. And if at some point you recognize that someone isn't meeting those, go back and make that clear too. Hey, we're missing the mark here. How can I be more clear about the expectations? Is this something that you actually can do? If not, let's see if we can get you some help to be more successful in that. And then when it's time, it's time. So if you've done all of those things, if you've made the expectations clear, and if they aren't meeting them, and you made that clear too, you try to get them some help, try to get other people at the table to help get them on the right path to success as well, and that didn't help, then when it's time, and sometimes we just have to make the ultimate decision to make the change. And that's what it is when it comes to dealing with people issues. So the next thing I want to look at is, what other ways can people participate in the service besides singing? So we have no musician, we can't get people to sing, whatever reason it is. It's just singing is not successful as a congregation for us. What other ways can we get people to participate? Because you want people involved. We want an interactive worship service. We want people to feel like they're a part of what's going on, and not like they're showing up on Sunday and you're saying a mass and they're listening and then they go home. Like, we don't want that. We want to see people involved in worship. That's a part of our discipleship. I mean, that's what it is to being Christians. Whether people are 8 years old or 80, that we want people to be able to be involved in worship, because it's a part of who we are as believers in Christ and the body of Christ. So other ways to get people involved: liturgy. Responsive readings are wonderful. Congregational prayers are wonderful. And that means using more than just like the Lord's Prayer, but it also means, if you're using some heavy stuff, to make sure that the liturgy is something that everyone can really follow along with. And that hits on a lot of things. One, if you have congregations that people speak more than one language as their native language, it means making sure we're checking that the reading isn't too complex, that we're simplifying text so that everybody can feel like they're a part of it and nothing's being read above their heads. It also means that if we're going to do things that are kind of theologically deep and maybe unfamiliar to new believers or to newcomers to the church, that we're explaining, hey, this is the Apostles' Creed. This is just an affirmation of what we believe. You can read it along with us, and if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer that later. Or if you don't want to read along this week and you just want to listen, that's okay too, but we want you to just feel like you're a part of what's going on. That goes for all of that. Making sure that we're just being inclusive in how we're doing interactive parts of our liturgy in worship. Prayers. If you've ever, this is kind of like a frank moment of, if you've ever been in a worship workshop with me, you know, my least favorite part of worship services are the shout out prayer times, where we pass the mic and somebody talks about their grandmother's toe that's been swollen for 2 weeks. I can't make it. I can't. I'm like under the pew by the time it's done. But one of the things that are successful are a couple of ways to do that. Invite people to just call out a name, not a situation, but just call out a name and be specific and direct about that. Ask people to not call out long stories and situations, but just call out the names of people you want remembered in prayer. Like at my home church, what they do is in the beginning of the service, in the program, everybody gets a prayer request card, and it's in the back of the pews as well. You fill it out, and during the service, the acolyte comes around with a cute little basket and picks them up, and he takes them up to pastor, and pastor just reads those things out as they're appropriate before the pastoral prayer. And we invite people to come forward to the altar. Again, I attend a small church, a small congregation, and there's a choir and there's a small praise band, but it's a small congregation. But coming forward to the altar for prayer is just something that's just powerful, because it gets people out of their seats and it gets them to take that literal step of faith. And I believe that God hears me and God is going to do something for me. So that's a huge part to get people to interact and participate in worship. The next thing is communion. If people aren't participating a lot and you've been passing the trays, invite them to come forward for communion. That's a cool way. I was in a chapel service Sunday that I think there was probably about 12 of us in service, and there was some congregational singing, but it was pretty quiet. But one of the most powerful moments in that was the prayer time, and then the communion. Everybody came down front and we had communion together. And it was beautiful, and it was interactive, and it felt like we're all in this thing together, you know? Because sometimes it can feel like you as the pastor or the liturgist, you feel like you're disconnected. And I kind of felt that way a lot of times, like particularly this Sunday and then other Sundays that I've been in these circumstances where there was like 12 people in the room and everybody was sitting at least 5 pews back. And there's 15 feet between you and the nearest person, you know? And it's like, oh gosh, you know, but having people just come forward, even if you meet them halfway. I've seen, who is that? Bill Wilson does that at Choose down in Glendora at his early service. It's an older crowd at the early service, not many of them there. He meets them halfway down the aisle with communion. So they don't have to walk that far, but they get up and walk. And he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to meet you halfway. And the Sunday I was there, most of them were sitting on the back 4 pews. And he preached from about the 5th pew back. He was like, all right, there's no point in me being in the pulpit if y'all are going to be in the back of the church. I'm just going to take my Bible and I'll meet you down there. I'll come to you. And it didn't feel like he was being intimidating. It felt like he was ready to just connect with us, like he wanted to reach out to us. So just be conscious of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's good to walk during the offering instead of passing the trays. Stressing the fellowship time before and after the service. That's huge. Community and fellowship is huge for us. I've been at some services that I felt like, man, nobody said anything the whole service. Do these people like each other? And then you get to the coffee hour afterwards, and it's just the room is bubbling over with laughter and conversation. And everybody, not one person went to their car. Everybody shuffled into this dining room for coffee hour. And I was like, wow, this is it. Celebrate that. Figure out ways of how you can get that same interaction and community and fellowship pouring over into that time and into the worship service. How you can kind of cross pollinate those things. And then the last way is, this is certainly not the exhaustive last way, but the last way on the PowerPoint is invite people to share in the service, to share their story, to share their testimony, their giving testimony. Even if they don't feel like they have a testimony of healing or deliverance or of faith that they can share. Sometimes, they're just committed givers, and their testimony of how giving has been beneficial for them in their lives can really change somebody else's discipline as well. Mission moments. You've got somebody that's running a food pantry or taking candy to the nursing home every week or whatever it is. Celebrate that and make that a part of the culture. Even if you're not doing that every week, every month is good. I would suggest maybe not on Communion Sunday because it's kind of already a long Sunday, but spice it up on the other Sundays when it can kind of get a little flat from time to time. Is just invite people to share, and that shows people that, one, that you care and we care about the individuals that are part of this community. You're not just a butt in the seat. You are a valued person, and we see you, and you matter, and what you do matters. And that's huge. Again, whether you have 2 people or 200, people need to know that they're valued in the church. And we're not just looking to count numbers on Sunday, but we really want to celebrate the work and ministry of everybody that's there. Okay. Here's a question that a lot of people are asking. Can we have service without music? It's possible. It is very possible. But having at least one musical element in the service is extremely helpful and impactful. Even if it means you're going to play a recording of a song during the prayer time or at the beginning of the service. We just do one hymn. Sorry, if you hear noises coming from my iPad, it's because we're in one of these beautiful sanctuaries that has the wood rafters, and they shift, especially when it's super cold. So that's what the popping is. And so my old sanctuary was like this in Kentucky too. It always scared me during the week. But having at least one musical element in the service is just really helpful, even if it's a special song, or if it's one song that we're going to all sing together at the beginning or at the end. Or if you're doing like a house church kind of setting where we're just doing, I know a lot of you are experimenting with dinner church settings and house church settings where we're just doing table discussions, that kind of thing. Sometimes just singing a chorus of a song a cappella at the beginning or end is really powerful. And sometimes just inviting somebody to come in and maybe play a song on the guitar, that kind of thing helps. Again, not absolutely necessary, but music is an impactful part of who we are and what we do in worship. And sometimes it means, you'll see in the second line, is considering doing the dinner and house church method. So if we're a small congregation, there's just a handful of us there, and we're struggling. We're trying to make it work and trying to give worship life on Sunday mornings. Frankly, there's just a few of us sitting in the pews, and there's this pastor way away from us in the pulpit, and we're not doing well with trying to do singing. Some of our people don't have the energy to help out with the liturgy or to participate in worship. Consider doing the dinner church or house church method, where the service is more focused around conversation and discussion, a short time of sermon or devotion that we do, and fellowship, rather than things like liturgy and music, where we're still receiving an offering, we're still celebrating the community of faith together, but it's not the formalized liturgical service that we're used to, just a different kind of thing. I've experienced it a lot. Gina is working with a lot of people, and some of you may have already had conversations with her. There are a lot of churches that are trying it, and we've got a lot of churches that are looking to launch it soon. Either to start a new mission, or new worship experience, or to just alter their worship experience. We have one church in South Jersey that I'm so excited for. They were struggling with trying to make Sunday morning work, and then they started doing a dinner church method on Sunday night and realized that it was impacting the church and the community so much more than Sunday, so much so that they decided to stop meeting Sunday morning and to only meet Sunday night during the dinner church hour. And the church is doing well. The ministry is reaching the community. People are coming in ways that they couldn't believe. We have another church in Central Jersey that's doing the same thing. They have a good service on Sunday, but they were having trouble reaching the community. And now they're seeing more than twice their Sunday morning attendance on Wednesday nights for dinner church. So the dinner church, house church method, again, can happen, and it'll a lot of times, especially again, for some of us that are in the small church setting that we're struggling to try to make the Sunday morning thing, this is a really good worshipful experience. Gina has been so blessed, and I believe for such a time as this with many of our churches, with creating resources that can really just, and Trey Wentz is doing a lot with that as well, but just creating resources that can help our faith communities that are small in number still be strong through this house church method that's focused on the conversation and the fellowship and the discussion of the word, and not trying to push through our normal Sunday morning ritual. Just an impactful and wonderful thing that really is just, I see a lot of passion and a lot of energy generating behind it. And if more of us would just grab onto that and really let it breathe some life back into our congregations and our church families, I think there's some hope there. Okay, that's my spiel. Nobody paid me to plug dinner church. I just believe it's working. So that's just it. So here's another one of the questions that a lot of people are asking. Where can we find a musician, and how the heck do we afford it? So let's just kind of deal with a couple of ways of that. First thing is post ads online. So many of our folks have found worship leaders, part-time or retired organists or things like that through Indeed and Facebook and Craigslist. We had a church a couple of months ago that lost their organist, posted online, and like literally the next week was able to find somebody new that said, hey, I heard you guys were looking. I'm playing for a church that's 50 miles away. It's too far for me to drive. You guys are down the street. I'd love to come there. And now they're doing wonderful. So these places are good, reliable sources for finding people and just networking and trying to get the word out. The next thing is contacting local music departments at the high schools and colleges and their campus ministries as well. Especially with colleges, you may not be as successful with finding musicians in the School of Music because they just get hit up over and over again for, hey, do you have a musician? Do you have an organist? Do you have a singer we can use? But campus ministries are a good resource to tap for people that might know how to play guitar or know how to lead worship or can play a little keyboard, and they can handle us helping out our Sunday service. Post in the nearest music shops. If you've got a guitar center or a record shop in town, DW, I forget all those names of different music shops, post an ad on their board. They love letting local churches and people like that do that kind of thing. And you'd be surprised how many musicians are in and out of there, and music students are in and out of there. Another thing is inviting local musicians to perform once a month or during the summer. I can't tell you how many folks and how many times I've heard a church say they went to a restaurant, heard a musician playing on a Friday night and said, hey, are you playing somewhere Sunday morning? If not, would you mind come singing for us one week? And it was either just something that was really good and really impactful for that one time, and in some cases, they stuck. One of the churches I served, we had a campus that almost the entire band came from a gig band that somebody heard at a casino on a Saturday night. I don't know how much we want to talk about, but they were worship leaders, and for 10 years they were the band at the church from somebody hearing them at the casino Saturday night. Just impactful because they were all believers in Christ. Not all of them were churched, but then they got in church and they were there every week and they were volunteers, which was like, wow, yeah. So another way to do it is internships. Using internships to find a budding musician or a worship leader that you can invest in raising up as a leader and empower them to bring the new life to the service. So that means finding somebody who may not be there yet with being able to do everything you're hoping for in worship, but investing in them. And doing an internship or just investing in one of our churches down south found a high schooler. She plays piano well. She has a good voice with singing. Not really good but she plays by ear, not really good with picking up hymns and that kind of stuff. So they applied for a grant, got money, and now they're paying for her piano lessons. And she's growing. Every week she's getting stronger and stronger and doing greater things. And her being that new young voice in the church is bringing so much life to that small congregation. So those are ways to do that. And you'll hear in the coming months that myself and Davidson Sutherland from Next Gen Ministries is going to be talking about how you can also, outside of doing internships within your own church or in connection with local colleges or high schools, on how you can work that through the Cultivate program in Next Gen, and even apply, because the Cultivate program offers internships. It's an internship program that is for formative ministries. It doesn't have to be always for preaching or discipleship. It can be for worship too. We just need to make sure that we're raising up leaders and investing in developing them. So that works like high school. It does over the summer and during the college years. For college students, it works during the school year. So that's a cool way to do that. The other thing is ask around the community in the town about retired musicians. There are a lot of retired musicians that wouldn't mind helping out, even if it's twice a month. Hey, can you come and help our church out? One of my mentors back home, God love her, I had lunch with her when I was home a couple of weeks ago. She is 86 years old and still fills in for churches from time to time on Sunday mornings. I was at a church a couple of months ago that I think the organist turned 94 and she's still hanging in there. They don't have a choir director right now, so she's running the choir until they hire a choir director too. So don't be afraid to ask around about retired musicians, and don't box yourself into just looking for a pianist or an organist. So sometimes there's some guitar players there that can really carry you. I've even seen a church they said, hey, you know what? Nobody plays an instrument, but this guy plays a saxophone. And it gives us something to sing along with on Sundays. So don't just keep an open mind and just think this is a gateway to bringing new life. We might start with just a saxophone or just whatever, but we're just going to start our violin or whatever, but we're going to start somewhere and we're going to start breathing some new life back into this thing. If you can't find a pianist or organist, there are lots of people who do play guitar and sing. And then raise up talent scouts in the church so that you're not burdened, you as the pastor aren't burdened with trying to find musicians and guest musicians. Delegate that, ask for some volunteers, get a couple of people together and say, hey, would y'all go out and find some folk that even if it's, whether it's for a musician that can play regularly for the church or twice a month for the church, or one thing that a lot of churches do is they take a break from the normal music during the summer, and they bring in guest singers all summer long. And they plan all year long so that every week, I know several of our churches do that. They plan for every week in the summer. They have somebody come in and sings a special solo or plays a special song on the instrument. It's people from the community. And it keeps people involved, especially in the summer when a lot of our numbers are down in the summer, except for you beach church folks who I'm jealous of that get all the good sun and excitement in the summer. And I know your churches are just bubbling over. And so you're fighting that kind of like the opposite right now in the winter. So this might be the time where you're bringing in guest musicians when things are down and everybody's gone away because it's not beach season. Okay, let's look at what's next. So let's talk about some resources. So I put together a couple of resources. This is just some real practical stuff of what can we do, what can help us, what can we use. So let's kind of look at that. Music. So for those of you that don't have a musician, an organist, pianist, guitarist, whatever, to play the hymns on Sunday or play the music on Sunday, and some of you have the old United Methodist hymnal CDs, and the Faith We Sing CDs, and the worship and song CDs and DVDs. I hear you. I've heard the horror stories. Cokesbury, if you're listening to me, I love you guys. We're gonna work together, okay? Um, but but the United Methodist Church, especially through the discipleship board on their website, has new accompaniments. Listen to me. This is not what's on the CD. So some of you may have seen this online and you're like, nope, we had the CD, didn't like it, it's not working for us. There is some new stuff that's online. And I have it here listed on the screen, but if nothing else, you can just Google UMC Hymnal Free Accompaniment. And they have over 200 songs that are available there, from the hymnal, the Faith We Sing, and worship and song, that are at good singable tempos, and it's just a piano playing, a nice intro, and they're all played at a speed. Gina and I listened to probably a dozen of them today that you can sing along with them. Very singable. So that works well. And you can download them. So you're not trying to pop a CD in every 5 seconds. You can download them, I suggest just create a playlist. Hey, here's all the hymns we're doing today. And just that way they're already up and ready. You're not trying to click through the website to find things. The website index, I should have had a screenshot, I'm sorry. It allows you to search by song title, by liturgical season. You can just look up Advent songs or baptism songs. You can look by the hymnal. So it makes it really easy to find stuff. The other thing is YouTube. I know a lot of you are using YouTube on Sunday mornings. So I want to talk about what that means. That works for hymns and contemporary music. Some of you are using that, and some of you may be like, what is he talking about? YouTube.com has a lot of videos that it's the accompaniment to the CD, but accompaniment to the song with the lyrics already on the screen. And that's cool. That works for hymns and contemporary music. I try to encourage people to shy away from the ones that you can hear somebody singing. Look for the instrumental ones and encourage your folks to sing. Maybe the first time you introduce a new song, you might use the one that has people singing. But then after that, switch and make these folks sing. Make them participate. Even if everybody's out of tune and can't hold tune in the bucket, get them singing on Sunday morning. This is what we do. Having a preset playlist really helps, so you're not looking for. I see it all the time. I was in a worship service a couple of weeks ago where God love them, the media person was just Googling every song we were doing, trying to get that YouTube video up, and it's distracting to the worship. The other thing that's distracting are those ads, the advertisements that play at the beginning of the YouTube videos. Listen to this. For $11.99 a month, and I know we're like, nah, that's too much money, but that's way cheaper than what you'd be paying for a musician, and it's the same price as Netflix. For $11.99 a month, you can get rid of the ads on YouTube, and it'll let you download the videos ahead of time, so it's not buffering trying to find a good internet signal on Sunday morning. Then you got your playlist, they're downloaded, nothing's going to interrupt worship. Now we have a smooth, nice, flowing worship with no distractions coming from the screen. And I think that's powerful. $12 a month, and we don't have that huge interruption. You know what I mean? That's just kind of what it is. Commercials are great at the Super Bowl. They are not good in worship. The next thing is just some cool presentation software. I put these up here, and I put them with the prices so you can see. ProPresenter is the one I recommend the most. ProPresenter is a really good thing. They actually just released a new version. I watched the webinar today. They just released ProPresenter 7 today. We're using at the conference level. If you've seen any of our screens at conference, it's ProPresenter 6. That's the version 6 that we're using. Excuse me. It costs $400. You pay that one time. And it's so worth it. And I'll talk about a little bit in a minute about why these are worth it as compared to using PowerPoint. You'll save yourself just a lot of time and stress and errors by not using PowerPoint on Sunday morning and using one of these things. ProPresenter is the one I recommend the most. A lot of people use Media Shout or Easy Worship because they feel like it's easier or it's less expensive. So I'll put the prices up here so you can see it. They're all about the same price, except for the second one, and I'll talk about Worship Extreme in a minute. But the most common ones are ProPresenter, Media Shout, and Easy Worship. They're all around $400 or $500. And though Media Shout and Easy Worship are, I hear you, Kay, this is not one time a year, except Easy Worship, you can pay the $180 a year, or you can pay $49. For Easy Worship, if you're going to use it, I suggest doing the yearly. But again, my recommendation is the $399 for ProPresenter. You don't pay that any other time. You pay that once and you've got it. It's not a yearly fee. A new software, for those of you that have CCLI licenses, yes ma'am, you're welcome. For those of you that have CCLI licenses, CCLI, which is Christian Copyright License, has a new thing called, and I'll get to that in a minute, Gina, has a new thing called Worship Extreme that's free with your CCLI license. They're still working some of the kinks out to make sure that it's not buggy as much, but I have it on my computer. It's decent, works well. It comes with some backgrounds for your screens already built in. And again, I want to repeat, with your CCLI license, which hopefully all of you have one, if you're using any kind of screens or if you're doing any kind of music outside of worship. There's something called the religious service exemption that covers your copyright for music that you are singing in worship, but it does not cover anything that you're photocopying. It covers minimal photocopying. It does not cover anything you're putting on the screens and anything you do before and after or outside of worship. So it's like $100 to $200 a year, really inexpensive, covers all your copyright license laws. And Worship Extreme is a new software that they've put with it. So now I'll show you what each one of these look like. Again, this first one is, and for those of you that are watching and joining in, we've just got about, thank you for catching up. We're just running through some resources now and some practical things to use. We're gonna run for about 30 minutes more and then we'll be done, okay? Hopefully not that long, because I'm gonna talk about 10 more minutes and then we'll open up for some questions. This is what ProPresenter looks like. Very simple. You click on a slide, that slide shows up on the screen. If you've seen the beautiful screen work that they do at Annual Conference or Ignite or anything like that, that's this. This is what you're looking at. It's very easy to use. I became an expert on it by watching YouTube videos. I am not a techie person. I'm a gadget person, not a techie person. So I have every machine possible known to man to make coffee. I do not know how to program a computer, but I learned how to use this on YouTube. So that's what ProPresenter looks like, $399 one time. You're not paying that for a year. Next one. This is Worship Extreme. This is what Worship Extreme looks like. Again, both of these softwares, actually all of these softwares, if you have a CCLI license, makes it really easy for putting in music and putting in Bible verses on these softwares, and we'll talk about what that looks like too, but especially putting in music, it'll import music like in 2 seconds, and you're not spending an hour, you or your secretary aren't spending an hour every week trying to make slides for all the hymns. You literally say, or all the songs in general, you literally type in Blessed Assurance, click enter, and it creates slides for the entire song. And you're not doing that every week. That takes up so much time. And so that's a huge benefit. This software and all of these softwares will do that for you. Let's look at the next one. Again, this is a new one, but it's free, comes with your CCLI license. This is what Media Shout looks like. My last church in Kentucky used Media Shout. It's a little buggy for me. That's why I recommend ProPresenter a little more. Media Shout had a tendency to give us more problems on Sunday morning. I didn't trust it as much as I trust ProPresenter. And obviously I trust Easy Worship Extreme. I'm just still learning it because it's only been available for the last 90 days. So it's really new, so I'm still learning it. Media Shout is good though. This is Easy Worship, pretty much just like Media Shout. Little more expensive. You see it's either $180 a year or $499 up front, or you can pay, I think it's $18 a month. For me, just not worth the money for it to be as simple and buggy as it is. But it's good if you have it. Keep going with that, okay? You can go ahead. Here's what I want to look at. This is the reason I'm showing you these other softwares. These are the issues with using PowerPoint in worship. If you're using PowerPoint on Sunday mornings for your screens, you're copying and pasting your whole week away. You're copying and pasting Bible verses, you're copying and pasting lyrics, you're standing room for error for trying to make sure you got the right amount of stuff on the screen. You're trying to find backgrounds for all of these slides, whereas all of these other presentation softwares, if you put a song in that library, it's there. And then every time you decide you want to sing When We All Get to Heaven, you just click When We All Get to Heaven, and bam, that thing pops right back up. And you're not having to create 24 slides for it again. Same thing for Bible verses that you're using on Sunday mornings. They have Bibles built into those softwares, and we use them all the time. You click John 3, and the entire John chapter 3 shows up already broken down into slides, or you can click John 3:16, and that one slide will show up. You can get it in different versions. It'll come, like ProPresenter comes with, I think, 3 or 4 versions for free, and then every version of the Bible after that is like $10, I think. We had to purchase it because my senior pastor only preached from NLT. Is that right? Yeah, the NLT. And I think we paid $12 when we bought the software. And that was it. We didn't have to buy it anymore. Nobody had to cut and paste from Bible Gateway every week. Because when you cut and paste from Bible Gateway, all those little hyperlinks show up at the bottom that you got to deal with, and all the 10,000 crazy fonts, like the verse number is one font, the first line's another font. Every time they have the word Lord, it's like 10 sizes bigger. And so it doesn't, which is cute on the website, but doesn't really fit on your screen right. If you just have the Bible app in one of these presentation softwares, really helps. And then the next thing is finding and formatting lyrics and getting them in the right order. You're not trying to figure out, does this work? Does this verse go on this screen? Does this go on this screen? That stuff just does it for you in those presentation softwares. With PowerPoint, unless you're using 2 monitors, you're flying blind. So like what Gina's looking at on this screen is all she's looking at in the back right now. So she has no idea what's on the next slide. And a lot of us are flying blind like that with PowerPoint on Sunday mornings. So then we end up distracting worship because we're clicking through 5 slides trying to figure out what the heck verse of the song are we on? Because we had to copy it and paste it in, and now we're lost. And it's hard to jump to a specific slide. If time's running short on Sunday morning and pastor's got to cut quick to something, we have to click through 20 slides trying to figure out where is she going next, trying to figure that out. Whereas the presentation softwares, as you saw on those slides, give you a preview of what you're looking at. Go back one more for me, Gina. Yeah, all of these are showing you every slide you have. So if you have to jump to something, you just click on the slides you need. Whereas, and that's whether you have 1 screen or 2. Whereas in PowerPoint, a lot of times we're just looking at slide for slide, and it's distracting in worship because we're trying to click, click, click. Okay, that's enough about that. Uh-huh. No, that was Kay asked a question. I addressed that already. I think so. Let me tap and just make sure. Yes. Yeah, I answered Kay's question. Thank you. And the other thing is, sorry, if you have the last thing on that is if you have a CCLI license and we're doing reporting and that kind of thing, these softwares will automatically report for you. Whereas if you're trying to keep track with your copyright license, you're having to fill out that online form or paperwork every year. It's just a lot, whereas all these other softwares will just do that for you. Planning Center will do that for you as well. Okay, now we can roll on. Here's, again, another practical resource, and I'm going to show you these. This is just all of them on one page. Go back for me. I'm going to show you these one by one, but I wanted to put them all on one page. So if you want to screenshot that, anybody, or take a picture of that, you can just kind of say, hey, here's the options Lan said. This is 3 different options for. We don't have a sound system. We want to start using the hymn accompaniments and getting some tracks. And I'm actually, I wanted to mention about the accompaniments. I'm working with some people now. Hopefully, there's about 200 that are free on the discipleship page of the UMC website, and I'm hoping that here in G&J we can start putting out some of our own too to add to that library. So look for coming information about that. That's something we're hoping will be coming down the line. I hope to have more information for you tonight, but the week has just been crazy. So we'll be releasing information about that soon. But let's just look at some practical things for how you can get a small sound system that can be heard throughout the sanctuary and can be heard when people are singing over it. Sometimes we're trying to kind of just use the best we have, and computer speakers, you can hear them, but they're buzzy, or you can't hear them once everybody starts singing. And so these are some easy, relatively inexpensive ways for how we can help with that by getting some inexpensive sound systems into our sanctuary. So let's look at each one of these options. The first one is, this is just a simple powered speaker that it's meant to go on the floor. It really works well if you elevate it though, like even if you have somebody build a box for it to sit on, or something like that. And what you see in the corner bottom, this is $228. It's the Behringer powered speaker. It has a mic input and a line input, which is for like a computer line or a guitar. So you can plug a guitar directly into it, or you can use this little cord that I have shown on the screen here, and you can plug in from your iPad or phone or computer for $8 into this thing, and bam, you got a sound system. And it'll take a simple, you can buy an inexpensive mic on Amazon. They have tons that are like $20. Or you can get there's several I didn't get a screenshot of. The Shure and the Sennheiser E85, they're like 99 bucks. Really, really strong, very commonly used microphone. It's like one of the best ones out there. And they're flat price, 100 bucks. But this is a sound system that you can pop together this is like $240. With the microphone, you're spending $340, and you have a sound system and a way to play the stuff from your computer or your phone or your iPad if you're going to use the accompaniments, or you just need something for people to sing over. Okay, the next one. Same kind of thing, just a little bit more complex. You got 2 speakers and a little miniature powered sound system with 6 channels, which means you can plug up to 6 microphones or instruments into it. You have a couple of singers, or if you have a pastor and a liturgist, or a pastor and a worship leader. And then it also has the direct lines for you can plug in your computer about 5 different ways there. And then that whole thing, just if you need to pack it up, if you guys are doing setup church, or I know some of you are worshiping in your social halls right now, either because of size or because of damage to the sanctuary or because of lack of heat. This is something you can easily set up and move and take down. I know a couple of you up north up north and down south are setting up church in the social hall every week. This is an easy way to just set that up and take it down and move it out of the way if you need to for other events. And then the next one is my favorite. This is a new popular one. This is the Denon Lectern Active. So that previous system, I think, was $600. This one's $600. That you can plug your computer in. It's actually a pulpit lectern with a microphone built onto it. You can plug your computer into it. It's got 2 outlets that you can plug your computer or phone or iPad in to make sure they don't die on you. And it's got 2 USB charging ports. It's a fully inclusive sound system that's all on that podium, which is just super cool. It's pretty neat, and you can pop it up pretty much anywhere you need to. As long as you got a power source. So those are just some simple sound systems for those of you that don't have a way. You're saying, hey, we don't have music and we don't have a sound system. How do I play this stuff? You can play it, again, from your phone, which if you're going to do, make sure you put it in airplane mode so we're not hearing your text messages during service. Or your iPad. Again, download the tracks ahead of time. iPad, tablet, Kindle Fire, whatever it is. Download the tracks ahead of time, or from your computer. Download them. Make a playlist. If you need help learning how to do that, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll send you some instructional videos on how to easily download songs and make a playlist, okay? Those are just 3 simple sound systems that you can use. I wanted to talk just a little bit about funding, you can apply for grants for these kind of things. through not only through the denomination, through the general church, but also through the conference. And there are local grants out there that you can apply for things, for funding for the interns that we're talking about. Even the Cultivate, our own internship program, the Cultivate program is partially grant funded. And then there's congregation development grants and Team Vital grants, all kinds of things. Again, but local, state, and denominational level grants that you can apply for to help pay for some of these things, or even do some fundraising. Don't feel like there's no options to get you some help though. I try to give you as many inexpensive resources that we can do. Again, sometimes it feels like, man, Land wants us to pay $400 for a software and we've been using PowerPoint. It's a worthy investment that you're going to pay one time and you're probably not going to pay it again for another 10 years. The version of ProPresenter that we use at the conference was released in 2015 and it still runs just as new today as it did then. Same thing for buying a sound system. It's an investment it's worth breathing some life back into it, especially though when it comes to things like we're talking about, investing in some kid taking piano lessons, or getting them some coaching help, or you got a young worship leader that's like, they can sing, they have a heart for the Lord, but they're really not connecting, they're not taking us there. Pay for them to get some coaching and just invest in them, love on them, celebrate them, and help really just pour into that growth process. We talk about, it's one of those things where I say simply, and sometimes and I know it's easier said than done, but we talk about, we want worship to get better, we want worship to grow, but you got to put your money where your mouth is. And so we really got to challenge our people to invest, but also to find the avenues to get help with investing in these kind of things as well. I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. And Gina and I are trying to create some more avenues of funding, especially for these small sound system investments as well, to help people with some partial grants and things like that. So we'll give you more information if and when that comes available. And in the meantime, we're happy to talk to you about other avenues that are already available. Some people have asked, do we need the music ensembles? And here's just a couple of quick, easy facts about why music ensembles are so helpful and vital to the church. They're saying, do we need the choir anymore? I was reading an article last week that said somewhere between 20 and 40% of churches in the last 10 years have shut down their choirs, their handbell ensembles. And I want you to know that, like, if you have those and you're struggling with, do we need that kind of thing? Yes. I think they're very helpful. Yes, the church can survive without them. Don't run back and say, Land says we can't survive without a choir. No, I'm saying, yes, they are helpful. They're a vital part of the ministry if you have them. And if you pour into making sure that all of these things, that's the key for us as leaders, is making sure that all of these things are set up to be on a path for success. But choirs and ensembles really help rally the congregation to see the power of group participation, to being involved in the worship. There's small groups and redemptive communities. At my last church, I was so blessed to see so many people came to the church through a choir or through our handbell choir, especially. We had a lot of people that came to the church that were unchurched or had left their own churches and weren't attending anywhere, and somehow or another landed in a handbell choir rehearsal, and became a part of our regular worshiping attendance. I had one lady who, oh gosh, I'm bringing tears in my eyes now. She was 79 years old and joined the choir because she liked to sing, and her next door neighbor, one of my dear friends, Miss Elsie, would bring her to choir practice every week. And at 79 years old, after being in our choir for over a year, she asked one night after choir practice, what does it mean to accept Jesus as my Savior? At 79. And she found Christ through her next door neighbor bringing her to choir practice every week, and is a part of the church now. So what a powerful opportunity for people to just be in that redemptive community that accepts somebody who wouldn't normally be at church on Sundays, but brings them into the community of love and grace and faith. And it gives place to raise up new potential leaders. You'd be surprised, from worship ensembles and handbell choirs and media teams and choirs, where you're seeing new potential for leadership in the church raising up. What else? Does anybody else have any? Do you have any other things? Any other reasons we might be able to use music ensembles in the church?
It's good for the spiritual life of the singers.
Yes, it is good for the spiritual life of the singers. Definitely so. Definitely so. Anything else? I think it's just a powerful ministry in the church. I can't see more about it other than that. I think it's powerful. If you have it, cherish it and invest in it. Set it up for success. If you don't, that's okay. It's fine. But if you do, celebrate that. Celebrate that. Okay. What's next? We're getting down to the last couple of slides here. Advertise your worship correctly, but don't get stuck. If you're advertising contemporary worship, make sure you're doing contemporary worship. Some of us and I say that because I know some of us are in the small church strong kind of realm, because we may have a church of one size, but we have a contemporary service that only has 10 or 12 people in it, or 20 or 30 people in it. If you're advertising contemporary worship, do contemporary worship. Strive for contemporary. If you're advertising contemporary worship and you're still doing the same songs you were doing in 1990 when you started contemporary worship, guess what? I was born in '84, so 30 years later, stop calling that contemporary. And let's sing into the Lord a new song. Let's bring some new life in it. And I say that because we might be comfortable, but seekers that come in off the street, that come in because your sign said we're doing contemporary worship, and you're still doing 1980 and 1990 contemporary songs, we're misleading. So let's just be honest and say, hey, we do a blended service. This is the mix of hymns, modern hymn arrangements, some things from the 1990s and 2000s. Let's just be honest, so that when people are coming, again, think about not who's here, but who will be here. And let's make sure we're advertising that right. Just by definition, and this is by no means a scientific or historical definition, this is Land Wilson's dictionary here. Contemporary worship is typically music released in the last 10-ish years, played on contemporary worship instruments, piano, keyboards, guitars, drums, all kinds of instruments. That's typically what contemporary worship is. It may or may not, and blended is a mix of hymns, modern hymn arrangements, contemporary music. You got a little bit of something for everybody in there. I love that style of worship. That's the kind of worship I grew up on. It's kind of becoming a more trend these days. I grew up in the Southern Black church, and in a lot of the African American context, all we knew was blended hymns. We started out with spirituals, and then we had an opening hymn, and then we had an anthem, and then you might hear just anything from contemporary to traditional for the rest of the service. Both of these, though, may or may not have minimal liturgy. It's okay if you're using liturgy in there. I would suggest minimally, but also it's good. It's still good to have. Sometimes when our worship gets really contemporary or gets into that blended contemporary realm, it gets to be more stage heavy on the interaction in service. And so you can still throw in a congregational prayer or some prayer time, like shout out prayer time, or bringing people to the front for things. That gets people still involved in worship. Again, and making sure that the liturgy has modern vocabulary. If we're calling it contemporary worship and we're still doing liturgy from King James Version, we might need to think about switching out of that and get into some more modern vocabulary, modern versions of the Bible. Again, sometimes it means I spend a lot of time I love some prayers that people write, but the language is either too deep or it's too old world, and we just have to modernize the language so it really becomes applicable for the average worshiper. Okay. Last thing is worship should be alive, folks. Come on, your worship has to be alive. If worship on Sunday is just going through the motions, and I see it sometimes, because sometimes I wonder, like, there've been times that if you're one of those pastors, just laugh if you know it. I've had this conversation with you. Don't feel like it was just you. I've talked to about 50 people like this, at the end of the service, I sometimes ask pastors, "Are you okay? Did that hurt having to go through that?" Because I just watched them read from this binder or this program, 45 minutes of liturgy, and then preach a sermon where like they were trying to keep everybody awake, but everybody was just there. And it's like, and I just want to ask, were you all right? Do you want to just go out back and listen to some music? Like, are you okay? Because our worship needs to be revived. So that's the thing. Just ask the question, and don't just sit in your office and be unsettled and unhappy with it by yourself. Talk to the people in the congregation. What can we do to revive our worship? Make the challenge known, but then get everybody invested in the change. That's a huge thing that we've been talking about with Outward Mindset last year and to this year, even with like the Moth storytellers and stuff, that we have to present the challenge, but we also have to focus on what's the change, what's the transformation. And that's the thing that applies even to our worship is we see the challenges, we know things aren't good. And if you don't see the challenges, call me. I'd love to help you figure out what the challenges are. I do that for churches all the time. But then let's figure out what the transformation is. How can we revive this thing? How can we bring some life back into it? Because even that can even be, and let me say that to you, sister pastor, brother pastor, lay leaders, whoever is listening to this, whoever's listening right now, that I see that it's spiritually draining some of you because you're trying to push through a worship service that is just draining the energy and life out of you on Sundays. So let's talk about with your people and with the leaders of your church, with your congregation, again, whether you have 10 people or 100 people, let's talk together about how we can get this thing revived and how we can make sure worship comes alive. Because if we can't get some life back in it, then we need to figure out what can we do different? Do we need to have a different format, or do we need to start looking at some alternative things altogether? So let's have those real conversations. And that's the thing, again, back to what I talked about doing the people issues kind of thing. Let's have the real conversations of when it's time, it's time. Let's figure out that now is the time for change. Not because it's the new year, not because it's 2020 and we're supposed to be seeing things clearly, or not because it's January and we've made resolutions or we decided we're not going to do this. Let's just be real with the fact that we are responsible for the body of Christ. And when it comes to this, we need to make sure that our most sacred tradition, which is our worship, is alive and has life-giving energy. That is such a powerful thing, and it needs to be a powerful thing. So we can't afford to just go Sunday to Sunday and let this thing just taper off and die. Okay? So I would love to see you bring some life to that.